Hey guys, it's Beth. Welcome to another episode of Remorselessly Biblical. I am so glad you're here. Literally, like every single time I say that, I mean it, because it takes a lot to show up consistently in life, doesn't it? And it takes a lot for us to say, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know where I'm going. I don't know how to get unstuck. I don't know who I am. I don't know how to show up and be brave. All of these big questions that are really universal, that we really each share and deal with and struggle with, in ways that not oftentimes many of us actually realize, that we are so connected by these questions and these struggles. So that's what we endeavor to do here on the show, on Remorselessly Biblical. We just say, you know what? Show up anyway. Be who you are. Be who God created you to be anyway, in spite of the bad decisions you've made, in spite of the wrongdoing you've done in your life. Like, just continue to move forward, because that's what matters. Tenacity, perseverance, even in the throes of uncertainty, anxiety, depression, things that we all deal with. And it's hard work, but just know that you're not alone. Know that we are never alone on this journey of life. So today I have on the show a guest that you guys are going to love. Her name is Tracey Mitchell. She and I met at NRB. For those of you who've been following me weekly on the shows or every other week in the summer schedule, you will remember that I went to NRB in Dallas. Tracey lives in Dallas. So I'm going to read you her bio, just because you guys know I like to do a lot of reverence to the folks on the show, so I don't miss anything, because many of the people on here are very, very accomplished. And so Tracey Mitchell is the executive producer and the host of Life from DFW. She's the CEO of the Winning Woman Consulting Group. Tracy is also the host of the Thrive Women's Conference, and she's also the vice president of Christian Women in Media Association. Tracy's like in media. She gets it. She does it. She travels 40 weeks a year and speaks internationally. And she wrote this book in 2018. We talk about it on the show today. It's called Becoming Brave. And here's what it says on the back cover of the book. A courageous life is not stumbled upon. It is cultivated. A brave life is the result of choosing to be bold and fearless when everything in you wants to cower in defeat. Tracey Mitchell offers a fresh, innovative approach to intentionally living a meaningful, courageous life. Each chapter in this book, Becoming Brave, contains insightful wisdom, real-life stories, and illustrations on how to transform fear and anxiety into confidence and courage and become truly brave. So you guys, will you please do me the favor of inviting and welcoming and being with me with Tracey Mitchell this week on the show. Tracey, hi. Thank you so much for joining us today on Remorselessly Biblical. I'm really happy you're here. Yay.
I'm so glad to be here. Thank you so much for hosting me today.
Of course. So one of the very first things I do for all of our viewers and listeners is have the folks that are on the show just kind of share about how we met. Sometimes I have people on here, just so you know, that I've known forever. Sometimes I have people from my former business life. And some people I'm like, I don't know who you are. Please explain. So can you just share a little bit about how you and I came into each other's lives? I'm a big believer in God's providence.
We met in Dallas, right? At the National Religious Broadcasters Convention a few months ago. Loved that. Felt you were a very authentic individual. Someone that I really wanted to have a future conversation with. And so I'm glad post-event we were able to connect and were able to share.
Yes. Thank you so much. And it's so funny because I was invited by another female, it's just interesting the older we get in life, how strong females sort of empower one another. And so one of my friends from Oregon was there. She and I had only ever talked remotely. And she's like, oh my gosh, you're here. I'm like, yes, come find me. I'm in the lobby. So she's like, you've got to come to this thing. And it was your thing. And I'm going, I don't know these women, but all right, cool. Let's just go. And you were the first person I saw out there, and you were welcoming everybody in. And it was just really amazing. And so you shared your book with me. We're going to get to that in a little bit on the show. But in general, can you just kind of give people the backstory about how you sort of grew up in the faith, maybe with or without the faith, how your whole journey of becoming the person that you are today has happened?
Yeah, I didn't really have a big, strong faith background, but I did have I remember I was 7 years old and in a little tiny apartment with my blood mother. And I peered around the corner and wondered why there was a strange man's voice, was in my living room. And so curious, I peered around the corner and I heard this man talking. He had this little tiny book in his hand, and he was sharing with my mother about this man who would never leave our family or forsake us. And so I was very intrigued by that because I didn't have a father and didn't know that men could stay. And he saw that I was interested. And so he began to share the gospel with me in a way that a 7-year-old could understand. And then he asked me if I would like to have a copy of the book that he was holding. And I said, absolutely. And so I had just been reading about a year and a half, and I took that book as if it was the anchor to my soul and the proverbial lifeline to my destiny. And I began to read that book every day for 30 minutes a day for almost the rest of my life until I became an adult. And that became the anchor for everything that was wrong in my life. It made it right, turned my world right side up. And I began to learn about Jesus simply by reading his word.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's crazy. And so you had somebody who spoke into your life that was just like in your home that said, hey, do you want to know about this?
Yeah, a stranger just going door to door, street witnessing, landed in our tiny apartment living room. And that's how I found the Lord.
Yeah. Isn't it crazy? Because sometimes I think we get so, I don't know, maybe skeptical or cynical, right? Like whether a Jehovah's Witness knocks on our door or whether somebody comes up and just says, hey, do you know Jesus? Are you saved? And you're like, get out of my face right now because I'm not sure I want to hear this. But yet there are times in our lives when people do that work and it's so well received and changes people's lives. So, I grew up the same way, similarly in Catholicism. But then when my life took me professionally was in sales. And I used to tell people like, I don't know, I got to sell certain software programs. But when you sell the gospel and you preach the gospel, there's no closing ratio because you're just planting seeds and people come along in your life and just water it. So that's awesome. And it totally changed the trajectory. So how did you get into I know you do all these amazing things from a broadcasting perspective. So talk to us a little bit about just what it is that you do as like the back of your book literally says right here, the executive producer and host of Life from DFW. And what is the Winning Women Consulting Group? Talk to us about the things that you do every day.
Oh, wow. That's a lot.
Yeah.
So how life, I ended back up in graduate school too, just kind of clueless at the way life takes us. So I have been. I'm one of the vice presidents for Women in Christian Media. I've been with that organization now for I think close to 18 years. So I've always had a heart and passion for women who have struggled to find their way and find their footing in media in general. I'm a published author with HarperCollins, Thomas Nelson. And part of the Winning Woman is helping women achieve their life goals, particularly in media. So I keep about 10 writing clients at all times. Executive producer, as you mentioned, of Life from DFW, which is a half-hour show. And now the Think Big podcast, which will be launched next month. So very excited about that. So that's kind of our day-to-day routine. Travel 40 weeks a year, speaking nationally, internationally. Last year, or right before the pandemic, ended up in Cuba, spent a lot of time in Canada, South America, Mexico, France, Israel. So very passionate about international media as well.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. And so when you were a little girl standing in there in your living room, 7 years old, going, I don't know what they're talking about right now. Did you ever envision your life to be this today? No, none of us do, right?
No, I was actually an introvert, still am. Was terrified of ever speaking. When they asked us to do a book report at school, I was the girl that was always going to be absent because I was terrified of speaking before people. So God, in spite of us, finds creative and innovative ways to use us in places that we're least likely to excel or succeed.
Yeah, absolutely. So I know we were talking a little bit about questions on the podcast before we actually started to record this. And you're like, I don't even know what questions you're going to ask me, but this is one that really is coming to mind, which is, have you ever on your journey just found a point where you felt like maybe you were living inauthentically, right? Like not according to God's plan, or maybe sort of like succumbing to expectations that other people had of you?
Yeah, I with age, that kind of helps every decade. I don't think I've ever lived, it's not in my DNA to be disingenuous or not authentic, but I think everyone struggles with a very popular tag phrase now of imposter syndrome. Am I really as qualified as what people are trying to make me feel? Am I on the right track? Have I deviated from the mission? Am I doing things that I just want to do? Or or am I really squarely in the center of what I'm called to do? And those are two very different things. You asked earlier, how did I end up on this track, kicking and screaming? Never wanted to do any of the things that I should be doing now. I was an undergraduate wanting to go to law school. They looked at me and go, how in the world are you ever going to be a lawyer when you don't like talking in front of people? But that was kind of my passion. And that analytical mind still balances out my creative stride. And somehow those two things work. But yes, I never want to be in an inauthentic place. Yeah.
Yeah. I think in imposter syndrome, you're right. It's, I think, overplayed, but yet the idea of it is so real for all of us because we're always just trying to fit in. We're always trying to belong. We're always trying to say, am I good enough? We get these narratives in our head and we're like, I don't know if I'm all the things that I think I am, or this person told me I am. And it's a lot of what we talk about on the show is, how do we lean into God in times of uncertainty? And to your point of your book, which I'm showing people right now, how do we be brave? Like, how do we become brave when the world tells us there's a lot of scary stuff out there? So can you talk to us a little bit about how did you pick the topic for your book? I know it was published in 2018, and so we got to dig deep. But in general, like being brave matters, right? Showing up and saying, I can do this stuff matters. So what does it mean to you, becoming brave?
Yeah, I love that you asked that question. So my publishers asked me, what word was kind of rumbling around in my brain. And I said, brave, courage. Love that topic. I signed with them to write this book and another book simultaneously. So I took on two books at the same time. I sat down to write Becoming Brave, and my world fell apart. I had 5 major tragedies in 28 days. One, we thought my husband was going to lose his leg in a freak accident. We don't have time to go into the 5 tragedies. One included a relative. There was a murder plot against this individual. So I'm not talking about things like the flu. I'm talking about things that were very tragic, that were bookmarkers in life. And so when I sat down, I had an idea in my head of what I thought becoming brave really was all about. And God allowed me to be in this space where I had to really write from the heart and not just from the head. So the words that are crafted in this book are very special to me because I sat on my back porch not knowing how my world would turn out. And one monitor was my husband, a baby monitor where I was watching him. And the other, our newborn granddaughter, was home upstairs and I was watching her in the other. And so when I wrote this book, every word on the pages came from a place of great angst, introspection, evaluation of the Word of God. And the principles contained in this book will let us know whether we're buying into the truth about how courageous we really are or we're not.
Mm-hmm,
yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so, wow, I did not know this about you, obviously. And so when you're telling me these 5 tragedies, and that's the thing, people are like, tragedy can be subjective. And you're just talking about like, well, my husband might lose his leg and there was a murder plot. I get like, these are not everyday occurrences. So when you say becoming brave, it is, we got to go to scripture, right? And we have to say, what does the Lord require of me, right? To act justly, to love mercy, to walk humbly. And it's like, okay, well, how do you do these things? If there's a murder plot against like my family member, my husband is here, I'm a grandma, I am this person, I travel 40 weeks a year. It's like a lot. It's a lot to take on in life. And yet you do it and you still care about the mission and doing kingdom work and caring and lifting up other women along the way. So I guess in general, if I could just ask for you to share like one piece of the most profound advice. And I know it wavers and it waffles, but in general, like the thing that has helped you the most, like your North Star in life, when things like that come your way, how do you keep going forward? How do you get through?
Yeah, honestly, this is such a simple answer, but it's one that I have had to revisit over the last 4 or 5 years, is that no one decides to wake up and be brave. No one reaches in their closet for their super hero cape. Most women become brave for one reason, because they have no other choice, right? I struggle to buy in when women say, I choose a courageous life. Well, okay, well, I choose that every day, every minute, every second. And it's often the most courageous women come not because they chose to be, but because life gave them no other options. I mean, they had to wake up every day and go to work. They had to wake up and take care of their families every day. They had no choice but to find a solution. And this book is full of examples, and not just engaging stories. It's full of life principles, stories, real life examples. It's a very imaginative book. I think it's entertaining and engaging. And it's not cookie cutter. And that's one of the things that we really set out to do, is to write from the heart, but also give them takeaway insights that would be like, I'm an average person, but the world's expectations are for me to perform on superhuman levels, but I'm facing everyday tragedy. So how do I balance those crazy, outlandish expectations and also be human at the same time? Yeah.
Right. And that is the balancing act. Yeah. And I'm so glad that you phrased it like that and framed it like that, because I mean, all we have to do every day is just read or see or watch what goes on in our world. And it's hard to be brave. And it's hard to say, oh my gosh, like it doesn't have to be tragic. It has to be every single day is an example of bravery. And you're right. Like what other choice is there, right? If you don't choose to traverse the day, then the only other option is to be like, I can't, I won't. And it's like, okay, bravery sometimes looks different, but it's all real. It all matters, right? Because whether it's the Afghan women, right, in Afghanistan right now, the Afghani women who are like fleeing and reverting back to 20 years of, don't even get me started on that. But like, whether it's that level of bravery or the bravery that says, I'm going to cook my baby girl some scrambled eggs this morning and I feel depressed, that's bravery, It's a lot. Life is hard.
Being brave, most people think that comes from drama, like from being in the middle of the throes of trauma or drama. But actually the monotony of day-to-day life, sometimes it takes more moxie, if you will, to arise from monotony, right? The day-to-day grind than it does from the ashes of trauma. And so we need God's intervention for both. We need his wisdom, we need his grace to navigate both.
Yeah, amen to that. It's like on The Chosen where Jesus goes into Peter's house and he sees Peter's wife. He's like, I see you. You know what? You got to deal with this guy. He's a handful and you're back here doing the mundane and you're caring for your sick mother. And like Jesus goes, I see you. And that matters too. So yeah, I'm glad and thankful you said that.
I think the big thing to me that's been in my heart, and I've been writing on this some, is how do we be invincible when we feel invisible? I'm going to say that again. How do we become invincible when we feel invisible? I think we're living in a culture, this meism ideology. What do I think? What do I want? What do I need? How do I feel? And we're so programmed to be all about me that we miss the thing that brings life and wellness and healing and hope to us. And that is being altruistic in some way, being philanthropic towards others. And there's such great fulfillment in that when we see others and quit expecting others to see us.
I love it. This is why you're a speaker 40 weeks a year, because you are preaching into us and you're saying things that are profound. It's like, how do we do this? So, you know what? I'm grateful for you and for the fact that we met and the fact that you're showing up in the world every day and you're like going, you know what? I'm getting through this in my own way. I'm teaching other people to show up and be brave in their way. And collectively, we can't, is what matters. Like we are in community. And that is exactly what the gospel says. Like we can't go it alone. We can't go this whole crazy journey of life alone. So thank you. Just thank you for being here. Is there any sort of last parting words of wisdom that you want to share with our guests and our viewers today?
Words of wisdom, but please, tell them to pick up a copy of Becoming Brave. There's so much wisdom for every single woman that's in this book. And no matter what spectrum, what age demographic that you are, there is hope, there is freedom, and there is encouragement in these words.
Thank you so much, Tracey Mitchell, for being here. I will link all the show notes, the book, everything, how to find this into the show notes at the end of this. So you guys, thank you as always. And thanks for being here, Tracey. We appreciate it. Okay. Talk to you later. Bye.